Captain Marcus Hale did not wake to alarms or the soft glow of a human ship. He woke to light that felt like warm water and to a ceiling that moved like the inside of a seashell. He lay still for a moment and listened. No engine hum, no metal, no familiar smell of coolant or recycled air. Only a calm, living silence, like a forest at dawn. He sat up slowly. The bed beneath him was not a bed. It was a gentle hill that rose to hold his back. The surface was smooth, and it shifted when he moved, as if it could sense his shape and comfort him on purpose. A faint silver mist curled along the wall. It made shapes he could not name, and then forgot them before he could look again. He touched his chest. He wore a simple tunic the color of dawn. His dog tags were gone. The tiny pocket tools he always carried were gone, but he felt no pain. His breathing was steady. His thoughts were clear. "Hello," he said. The room opened around him like a flower. A door did not slide or swing. It simply chose to be open. 3 beings stood beyond the threshold. They were tall and slender, with a soft glow under their skin like sunlight through ice. Their eyes were large and bright. Their hair flowed as if there were a wind that no one else could feel. They wore garments that looked like woven light. They moved as if they were part of the room, part of the living crystal under his feet. The one in front stepped closer. She had a diadem like a small wave of glass and a calm face with a gravity that did not need words. Her voice reached him without a sound, and then, a moment later, he also heard it with his ears. "Do not fear," she said gently. "You are whole." Marcus tried to stand. The bed lowered to set his feet on the warm floor. He took a breath, and the air tasted clean, sweet, and a little like snow. He put his hand to his heart out of habit and nodded. "Where am I? And who are you?" The woman bowed her head a little, not in a way that made him feel small, but in a way that made space for him. "This is the Palace of Living Crystal," she said. "This world is Zyril. I am Seraphon, heir to the throne." Zyril. Marcus searched his memory. He had trained on maps and intel briefs and long lists of star names. He did not remember Zyril. How did I get here? Seraphine's eyes softened. An accident. A tear in gravity. Your vessel broke. We found you in the rift's fading light. You were almost gone. She paused, and there was a quiet sadness in her voice, as if she had watched many things drift away in the same cold way. We brought you here. The palace accepted you. Marcus looked down at his hands. He remembered the rescue mission. A colony ship stuck near a collapsed gate, a scream across a frequency no one should have been able to use. He remembered a bright twist of force, his ship tilting, alarms rising, the metal screaming like a living thing. He remembered the black, and then this light. "Thank you," he said. He kept his voice calm. He was trained for strange rooms and stranger hosts. He was trained to be polite when he did not understand. "I am Captain Marcus Hale. I am human." At that word, a small ripple passed through the other 2 beings. They shared a brief look. Seraphine's expression did not change, but the air seemed to hold its breath. "Yes," she said. "Human." Hear the weight of that word. It sounded like an old story coming back to a room that had been quiet for too long. "Do humans still live?" Seraphine asked softly. Marcus looked up surprised. "Yes," he said. "Scattered. Fewer than before, but alive." He tried to keep his tone even. He did not know what history Zyril told itself about humans. He did not want to tell the wrong version. A kind warmth moved across Seraphine's face. She took 1 step closer. She did not touch him, but he felt a touch in the way the room lightened. "Then the old stars did not lie," she said. "There is still a river in the dry land." The other 2 beings bowed. One of them was older, with a crystal disk at the throat. The other was young and curious, eyes bright with questions held back by decorum. The older one spoke. "I am Vale, Chief of Minds," he said. "For many cycles we have listened for your kind. We heard echoes. We did not expect an answer so soon." "How long?" Marcus began, then stopped. Time was a trap in space. He tried again. "What do you know about humans?" "Stories," Vale said. Fragments. You built with hands and heart. You broke walls that were said to be the edge of all things. You left before we could agree on what that meant. Seraphine watched him carefully. And now one of you stands in our hall, she said, brought by accident, or brought by a pattern we do not yet see. Marcus tried a small smile. It was not a plan, he said. But I am grateful to be alive. Seraphine nodded. Come, there is much to show, and there is something you must hear. They walked through halls that grew like coral reefs shaped by music. Light flowed in quiet streams along the walls. The floor gave a soft answer to each step. Outside the long windows, a city shone in gentle colors. Buildings rose like trees. Bridges moved like slow vines. People walked as if they were part of a large dance. No one rushed. Even the sky seemed to bend in time with the palace. Marcus did not see guards with weapons. He saw sentinels who wore bands of light at their wrists. They nodded as the princess passed. They looked at Marcus with curiosity, not fear. He found himself relaxing. It was hard to hold suspicion in a place that felt like a song. They entered a great chamber. The ceiling opened to a sky that was not just blue. It was a canvas of tiny moving shapes like soft petals that caught the sun and sent it down in fine beams. In the center of the chamber stood a sculpture that hummed. It was made of thousands of small pieces that hovered in a loose shape, as if magnetized by thought. The pieces turned slowly, always finding new patterns. Seraphine raised her hand. The sculpture became still. She looked at Marcus, and he felt again that weight without force. We have an old book, she said. It is not a book of pages, but a book of moments. It can only be read by many minds together. It tells the story of a time when our people almost ended. It speaks of a bound flame who would stand with the air when logic turns to fear and the mind forgets the value of heart. It says the bound flame would come from beyond our knowing. It says this would happen when the palace made a choice of its own. Marcus looked at the floor, at the way the crystal veins pulsed with a heartbeat he had not noticed before. He looked back at Seraphine. And you think, the palace chose me? He did not laugh. He could not. The room would not let him. Vale took a breath. When we found you, your body was broken, he said. We brought you here and placed you in the healing alcove. The palace refused. Then the palace grew this room and brought you to it. It wrapped your mind in quiet. It changed parts of itself so that your pattern would be safe. Seraphine watched the sculpture. The tiny pieces trembled as if a wind passed through them that no one else could feel. No guest has been given this, she said. Not even our own. Marcus swallowed. He felt very small and very seen. He did not like the feeling, and he did not fear it either. It was like standing under a vast sky on a clear night. I am a soldier, he said. I have done brave things, and I have made mistakes. I can fix machines. I can plan under pressure. I can keep my head when the room is hot. I can talk to strangers. I can listen. But I am not a savior. I am just human. Perhaps that is the same thing, Seraphine said softly. Before he could answer, the chamber changed. The sculpture shifted back into motion, fast and sharp this time. The air grew tight. A soft tone entered the room, the kind of tone that made the back of the neck want to straighten. The sentinels raised their heads. Vale's eyes went distant for a moment, as if he listened to something far away. Seraphine's brow drew in a touch. A signal, she said. From orbit. A cautious mind. Not ours. Marcus tensed. He had heard many signals. He knew the shape of a threat in the way a tone held itself. But he saw no weapons. He saw only people moving in purpose that was not panic. No danger, Vale said quickly, reading the room and perhaps the pulse of the palace itself. A watchful probe. The eclipsed ascendancy observes. Marcus did not know the name, but he could guess the type. An ascendancy. A group that loved rules and numbers. Not his favorite kind of neighbor in his experience, Seraphine turned to him. We will not fight, she said. That is not our way. We will show we are open. We will answer thought with thought. Her voice was firm, but he could hear a small string of worry under the calm. The worry was not fear for herself. It was fear for her people. "Can I help?" Marcus asked. She studied him. "Yes," she said. "Be yourself." It was the strangest order he had ever received. It was also the hardest. They led him to a balcony that looked out over a lake like a mirror. The palace lived on the lake's edge like a great shell. The water touched it and made a soft sound, like a hand brushing silk. Seraphine closed her eyes. The bands of light on the sentinel's wrists grew brighter. Vale lifted his palm. A gentle wave of quiet spread out like a ring on the lake after a stone falls in. Marcus felt nothing at first. Then he felt a light touch at the surface of his thoughts, like rain on a window. It did not try to enter. It simply watched. He stood still and breathed. Seraphine spoke, but her voice was not sound. It was a presence that rested like a bird on his shoulder. He felt it, and he felt two answers in return, light and cool as stars reflected in water. The ascendancy, he guessed. Distant. Calm. Measuring. He waited. He thought of the little things that had saved him in strange rooms. Slow breath. Open hands. No fast moves. Clear words. "My name is Captain Marcus Hale," he said aloud. Because he was human, and he liked the way real sound gave shape to meaning. "I am a guest. I am grateful to the palace. I am grateful to Princess Seraphine." He did not know if the ascendancy understood spoken words, but he knew that tone carried across more than one kind of sense. He made his tone gentle and steady. The light touch at the edge of his mind grew a fraction heavier, then lifted again. He felt the grace of a question. It did not push. It held out a hand. Vale's voice touched his thoughts. "It asks what you are," he said softly. "It asks if your mind is a weapon. It asks if you will change us." Marcus smiled a little. He did not mind the questions. He had asked the same ones in other rooms. He answered in the only way that felt true. "I am human," he said again. "Sometimes my mind is a tool. Sometimes it is a river that runs where it wants. I cannot be a weapon if I am also a person. I will not change you. I will show you how I see, and you will decide what to learn." The air relaxed. The light touch drew back like a tide going out. The sentinel bands dimmed. The room let out a breath it had not known it was holding. Seraphine opened her eyes and looked at him. In her gaze was quiet wonder. "You did nothing," she whispered. Marcus shrugged. "Sometimes doing nothing is the work," he said. "Let the other mind see you are calm. Let it choose calm too." Vale laughed once, very softly. "You speak like an old stream," he said, simple. "Yet the ground is different after it passes." They walked back through the halls. People of Zyril watched as they passed. Some bowed. Some smiled. Some raised their hands to their chests, a gesture that seemed to mean welcome. Marcus returned the gesture when he saw it. He found that his shoulders had lowered. He found that he liked the way these people moved through their world. But whispers followed him too. He did not need to understand the words to feel the shape of the talk. Human, bound, flame, fate, princess, risk. He kept his eyes forward. They came to a garden under a high dome. Trees grew with glass leaves that chimed when they touched. Vines carried small lantern fruits that bobbed in a slow rhythm. In the center of the garden, water arched in a long curve and never fell. It hung in a ribbon and twined back into itself. As if time had been taught a new trick, Seraphine stood near the water and watched the light move across it. "I have had visions," she said, "since I was a child. They came in dreams and in waking. They showed me a shadow moving across our world. They showed me a word I did not know then. Fear. Not the fear of danger. The fear of losing a way of being. The fear that makes minds close." Marcus listened. He did not speak. He had learned, long before, that some moments ask only for quiet attention. "The Book of Moments was clear," she said. "When the fear comes, the air must bind her fate to the bound flame. Only then will the people remember the strength that is not in thought alone." I did not believe the story. I wanted to build a new story with work and with love. I wanted to choose my life. She turned to him. The light on her face was soft and honest. But then the palace chose you, she said. And then the ascendancy watched. And then I saw your mind breathe when others would hold their breath. Marcus shook his head very slightly. I am not a symbol, he said. I am a person trying to stand up straight in a new place. She smiled, and there was relief in it. That is why you may be the symbol we need, she said. Princess, Vale said from a short distance behind them. He spoke softly, but the air heard him and made space for his voice. The High Council convenes. They ask for your answer. Will you name him? Will you begin the ritual? Seraphine looked out at the hanging ribbon of water. Her hand hovered near it, then dropped. She did not touch. If I do this, there is no quiet after, she said. There is no quiet now, Vale said kindly. There is only choosing who makes the sound. She turned to Marcus. If I speak the word, your life changes, she said. You will be studied. You will be asked to stand beside me in rooms full of careful eyes. You may be blamed for anything that trips, even if you did not set the stone. Marcus took a breath. He wanted to say no. He wanted to walk back through the living halls and find a way to fix a small broken thing and be useful, and then leave without leaving a mark. He wanted the old mission back, the simple rescue that had kept his mind straight for so long. But he also felt the palace watching him with patient hope. He felt the city hold its breath, not with fear, but with a desire to see what new pattern could come. He felt in his chest a small, steady light. It was not pride. It was not duty. It was the quiet wish to be honest with himself. I cannot promise I am what your story says, he said. But I can promise I will be human in front of your people. I will be honest when I do not know. I will be brave when I do. I will listen. I will share. I will not force. If that helps, then yes. I will stand beside you. Seraphine closed her eyes for a heartbeat. When she opened them, the decision was clear. Like the first star after sunset. Come, she said. They crossed a wide bridge to the council hall. The hall was shaped like a listening ear. Benches curved in gentle arcs. The ceiling did not echo. It carried each voice as if it were the only one speaking. The High Council waited on a raised platform. They wore no crowns. They wore memory bands that shimmered with slow color. Each counselor's band was a different hue. The colors blended where they stood close, a visible sign that their thoughts were meant to meet. Seraphine walked to the center. Marcus stood at her right, one step behind. Vale took a place among the counselors, not apart from them. A quiet wave spread through the hall as everyone took in the scene, the air, the human, the choice. An elder counselor with a band like old gold lifted their hand. We gather, they said. A pattern returns. The book of moments opens. Speak, air. Seraphine's voice was clear and simple. A human lives, she said. He stands in our hall. The palace chose him. The ascendancy watches. Our people feel a wind. We must decide whether it is a storm or a change of season. A murmur ran through the room and then fell away. Seraphine continued. I have seen fear in visions. I have also seen hope. Hope does not stand by itself. It needs a shape. I will give it one. I name Captain Marcus Hale as Bound Flame. She did not shout. She did not need to. The room heard. The palace heard. The city heard. Marcus felt the floor shift, as if the building took a deeper root. The elder counselor bowed their head in respect to the heir's choice. So named, they said. Let the ritual begin. The sentinels stepped forward. They did not carry weapons. They carried a simple bowl of clear water and a small branch from a tree whose leaves chimed. They held the bowl before Seraphine. She dipped her fingers in the water and lifted them. The drops hung in the air and did not fall. She turned to Marcus. This is the ecliptic convergence, she said. It is not a chain. It is a vow to see through each other's eyes in moments when we would rather turn away. It binds no body. It binds no will. It binds attention and respect. Marcus let out a breath he did not know he held. No chains, no force. A vow to look. He could make that vow. I accept, he said. Seraphine touched one floating drop. It became a small glow and drifted to rest just above Marcus's heart. It was warm, not hot. It was not heavy. It felt like holding a friend's hand with your eyes closed. Marcus dipped his fingers in the bowl. The water lifted. He touched a drop and watched it drift to rest above Seraphine's heart. A soft sound moved through the hall, not applause, not cheer, but the sound a spring makes when it first opens after winter. The branch chimed. The counselor's memory bands shifted in color, finding a new blend. The palace light grew a shade warmer. It was done, but it was not quiet. The hall filled with voices as counselors spoke to one another in low tones. Not all were pleased. Marcus could see it in the way shoulders held themselves and in how a few glances slid away too quickly. He did not take it in as an insult. He took it as the natural shape of a room, where something new had walked in and asked to sit. The elder counselor raised a hand again. "Bound flame," they said, addressing Marcus. "We have questions." Marcus nodded. "I have answers," he said, "and also not answers. I will be clear about which is which." Small smile ghosted across a few faces. It helped. "Do you come with an army?" Another counselor asked. "No," Marcus said. "I come with stories. I come with ways to solve problems in rooms that do not match the manual. I come with stubborn hope. That is all. Will you teach us to fight?" asked a younger voice. "I will teach you to stand," Marcus said. "Sometimes standing is enough. Sometimes it is the hardest thing to do." "What do humans want?" a counselor asked, curious, cautious. "Many things," Marcus said. "But if I must choose one answer, I say this. Humans want to belong to tomorrow. We want a seat in whatever comes next. We want to help build it." The questions did not end, but they softened. The counselors were not trying to trap him. They were trying to understand the edges of the shape he made in the room. He gave them the best shape he could with simple words and steady tone. Outside, the city adjusted to a new rhythm. People who had not thought of humans for a very long time spoke the word to themselves, tasting it like the first bite of a fruit they had only read about. Children asked what a bound flame was. Elders told them a story that had waited for fresh breath. When the session ended, Seraphine and Marcus stepped out into a smaller hall where the light pooled like quiet water. They stood side by side, not speaking at first. The ribbon of warmth above each of their hearts glowed faintly. An echo of the vow, Seraphine broke the silence. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I have stepped onto a bridge that I cannot see the end of," Marcus said. He looked at her and smiled. "But it feels strong under my feet." She let out a small breath that carried away a weight. "Good," she said. "There is a feast. Not for show. For grounding. You will taste our bread." "I would like that," he said. They walked toward the scent of gentle spice and sweet steam. On the way, they passed an open space where engineers shaped light into lines that became support for new rooms. They waved. Marcus stopped, drawn by the work. The engineers showed him a cluster of small devices that sang to the palace and asked it to grow in certain directions. He listened, and then he asked a simple question about how they calibrated the pitch when the air was wet. The engineers paused, then laughed with delight when they checked and found a tiny drift. They adjusted it, and the line steadied. "You see small things," Seraphine said later as they walked again. "Small things are where big things hide," Marcus said. The feast was gentle. There was no loud music, no heavy speeches. There were fruits that tasted like bright mornings, and breads that were soft and warm, and a tea that made the tongue remember moments of kindness. People came to meet him in ones and twos. They asked polite questions. He asked them more. He learned the names of the city's rivers and the way the palace listened to the lake and sent silt to where new gardens needed it. He learned that the lantern fruits in the dome were not just for beauty. They stored light for cold nights. He learned that the protector's bands did not shoot anything. They turned confusion to clarity for anyone who needed it. He liked that very much. When the feast ended, Seraphine led him to a high balcony. The sun was low, and the city glowed. The lake held the sky and doubled it. "Today was simple," she said. Tomorrow will be less so. The ascendancy will ask again. Our council will question. Some will fear. Some will hope too much. We will need patience. I have some, Marcus said, and I can learn more. She looked at him, and for a moment the heir was also just a young person who had chosen a path with care. Thank you for saying yes, she said. Marcus looked at the city. At the palace that had made a choice. At the sky holding 2 suns for a heartbeat where the lake doubled the light. Thank you for asking, he said. Below them, the palace shifted slightly as if it had heard and approved. Above them, a single star appeared. It felt like a sign, but not the heavy kind that tells you what to do. It felt like the gentle kind that only says, keep going. And so, by mistake and by choice, human warrior became part of the alien princess's fate. The vow glowed between them, a promise to look and to listen, to speak and to stand. The night came, and the city rested, but the new pattern did not sleep. It waited, quiet and bright, for the next day. The sun rose over Zyril like a living fire, but its light was soft. The palace of living crystal shimmered in quiet colors. Birds of silver wings crossed the sky, leaving trails of sound that faded like laughter. Captain Marcus Hale stood on the balcony of his new chamber, watching the city come alive. He still could not believe he was here. A week ago, he was a soldier lost in a black hole. Now, he was bound by a vow to an alien princess and part of a prophecy he did not understand. He looked down at the small glowing mark above his heart, the light that linked him to Princess Seraphine. It pulsed faintly in time with her own. When she was calm, the glow was steady. When she was near, it grew warm. He touched it gently. I hope I don't mess this up, he murmured. A voice came from behind him. You will not. Seraphine stood in the doorway, wearing a robe of white and soft blue. Morning light played on her silver hair. She looked peaceful, but her eyes carried the same quiet storm he had seen since the council meeting. Sleep well? She asked. Mostly, Marcus said with a small smile. Your beds are too soft. A soldier's back needs something solid. She laughed softly, a sound like bells underwater. We can grow a harder one for you if you wish. The palace listens. I'll survive, he said. I've slept on worse. She stepped closer and looked out with him at the city. The people speak of you, she said. Some say you bring hope. Others say you bring change. Both are true, I think. I didn't bring anything, Marcus said. Just myself. Then perhaps that is what we needed, she replied. They stood together for a while in silence. The morning air smelled of light rain and strange flowers. The council divided later that day. Seraphine led Marcus to the Hall of Thought, where the High Council waited. The chamber was filled with soft light and slow music that helped the mind stay calm. But calm was not what Marcus saw on their faces. Counselor Vale greeted them with a polite bow. The Ascendancy has sent another message, he said. They ask again for the humans' removal. Marcus sighed quietly. Figures. We make one mistake, and everyone wants to panic. Seraphine frowned. What reason do they give? Vale lifted a small sphere that projected glowing words into the air. They claim your bond violates the law of balance. They say the presence of an unrecorded species within royal essence risks pattern corruption. Pattern corruption, Marcus repeated. Sounds like a fancy way to say they're afraid. That is exactly what it is, Vale said. They fear what they cannot predict. Seraphine turned to the council. And what do we fear? She asked. Do we fear the same thing? The room went quiet. A few counselors looked away. Others met her gaze but did not answer. Marcus stepped forward. Look, I'm not here to break your laws. I didn't even know you had them. But I've seen what happens when people let fear make their choices. You end up fighting ghosts until there's nothing left but smoke. One of the elder counselors leaned forward. You speak boldly for someone who has just arrived, human. Marcus gave a small nod. I speak because I care. You saved my life. That means something to me. I don't want to see your world burn from the inside just because someone is afraid of change. There was a murmur through the chamber. Seraphine's eyes softened. The elder counselor studied Marcus for a moment. You are strange, he said. You talk of fear like an old friend. Marcus smiled, a little sad. That's because humans have lived with it for a long time. We learned how to walk beside it. The counselor sat back, thoughtful. Seraphine raised her voice. We will not answer the ascendancy with fear. We will answer with peace. The unexpected lesson days passed. Marcus became a quiet curiosity in the palace. Some people watched him with open awe, others with silent doubt. But the children of Zyril loved him. One morning, he found them in the courtyard chasing small floating lights that danced above the water. When he walked by, one of the lights followed him. The children laughed. See? A little girl said. The light likes you. Marcus crouched and watched the tiny sphere. It shimmered and pulsed with a gentle rhythm. Maybe it thinks I'm funny looking, he said. The children giggled. The sphere moved closer, glowing warmer. Seraphine appeared behind them, smiling. It likes your energy, she said. It responds to kindness. Marcus looked at her. So they feel emotions? Yes, she said. They were made long ago to help young ones understand feelings. When you are angry, they dim. When you are kind, they shine. He nodded slowly. We used to have something similar back home. We called them pets. Pets. He smiled. Small animals we cared for. They taught us to be gentle. Sometimes we learned more from them than from people. Seraphine looked at him curiously. Your kind finds wisdom in simple things. Sometimes the simple things are what keep us alive, he said. She thought about that for a while. Later she told him quietly, our people forgot how to learn from small things. We built great minds and quieted our hearts. Then maybe, Marcus said, it's time to remember. The shadow returns on the 7th day. The skies above Zyril changed color. A thin, dark shape appeared near the edge of the sun. The palace lights dimmed for a moment, as if it were holding its breath. Vale rushed into the throne room. The Ascendancy fleet approaches. They say it is only a survey delegation, but they bring war drones in orbit. Seraphine stood tall. Send the message. We welcome peace. Marcus shook his head. They're not here to talk. They're here to test you. You would know? Vale asked. Yes, Marcus said, because that's what humans used to do. We'd send scouts with guns, just in case. Seraphine turned to him. What do you suggest? Show them something they don't expect, he said. Show them we're not afraid. Within hours, the Ascendancy ships appeared above the palace. They were sleek and silent, like blades of shadow cutting the light. From the central ship, a voice reached the palace through the air itself flat, cold, and without emotion. Zyril Dominion. Your decision to bind with an unknown species breaks the equilibrium. Release the human. End the convergence. Return to order. The words echoed like law. Seraphine stepped forward on the balcony and raised her hand. We will not unbind what is freely chosen. Our order grows, it does not shrink. You speak of balance, yet fear change. We will not share that fear, the voice replied. Then your world will be isolated. The light from the Ascendancy ships shifted, and waves of energy began to build. Vale whispered, they mean to block our sun, to seal us under shadow. Seraphine looked at Marcus. We cannot fight that. Maybe not, he said, but maybe we can outthink it. The human way Marcus asked to see the palace engineers. They gathered around him in the central hall, watching as he drew rough shapes on a shining floor with his finger. Their plan depends on fear, he said. They want you to stop believing in your own light, so we make the light stronger. One engineer frowned. The palace light flows from the lake's reflection. It cannot grow stronger without harming the lake. Marcus smiled. Then we don't make it stronger. We make it smarter. He asked for thin mirrors, metallic leaves that could reflect sunlight in wide arcs. They grew them quickly from the palace itself. He showed them how to angle the mirrors around the city, using math and instinct. The mirrors would catch the sun before the Ascendancy's field could block it completely. It was a simple plan. Too simple, the engineers thought. But it worked. When the Ascendancy ships deployed their shadow field, the mirrors bloomed like 1,000 silver flowers. The sunlight bounced from one to another, flooding the city in golden light. The Ascendancy's shadow could not touch it. On the balcony, Seraphine laughed for the first time in days. "You used light to fight shadow," she said. Marcus grinned. "Humans don't always need guns." The Ascendancy ships hung still for a long moment. Then the voice returned, colder than before. "You resist logic? You embrace chaos. You are dangerous." Marcus folded his arms. "You're confusing chaos with freedom. Freedom is inefficient." He smiled. "Maybe, but it keeps the universe interesting." There was no reply. The ships turned slowly and withdrew into the upper clouds. The city cheered. The council bells rang. Children threw bright petals into the air. The palace light pulsed like a living heart. Seraphine turned to Marcus, her eyes bright. "You changed the fate of my people with sunlight and courage." He shook his head. "No, princess, you did. I just reminded you that fear only wins if you let it." The bond deepens weeks passed. The Ascendancy did not return. Life on Zyrel began to change quietly. People laughed more. The council no longer spoke in slow riddles. They began to listen to Marcus, to each other, to the quiet hum of the world. Seraphine spent more time walking among her people. Marcus walked beside her, no longer as a stranger, but as something else, still human, but part of a larger song. They spoke often in the evenings. "Sitting by the lake, Marcus said one night. "On Earth we had a saying, destiny is just the name we give to all the choices we already made." Seraphine smiled. "Then perhaps fate did not make the mistake after all." "Maybe not," he said softly. The small glowing mark between them pulsed warmly. And for a moment, they shared a memory, his memory of a battlefield sky filled with rain and the quiet pride of standing when others could not. Seraphine saw it through his eyes. She felt the courage, the pain, and the hope. Tears filled her eyes. "That," she whispered, "is what my people forgot. To feel deeply and still stand." Marcus looked at her gently. "You remember now." A new dawn the next morning, the council gathered again. Vale stood and spoke to all. "The Ascendancy has withdrawn its demands. They wish to open dialogue. They speak of curiosity instead of threat." The hall filled with quiet amazement. Seraphine looked at Marcus. "You have changed them." He shook his head. "No, they changed themselves when they saw that you didn't break. I just gave them a mirror." The council applauded softly, their light bands glowing with calm colors. The bound flame prophecy was no longer a story of fear, it was a story of rebirth. The final gift that night. As the palace rested and the stars shimmered above the lake, the palace itself began to hum. The living walls glowed softly. Marcus and Seraphine walked through its corridors until they reached the Hall of Origins. The great sculpture of light and crystal that once told old stories now changed shape. The floating pieces formed to figures one human,
one Zyrolia,
standing together beneath a rising sun. "The palace tells its story," Seraphine whispered. "It has added you to it." Marcus smiled faintly. "I didn't mean to be a part of your legend. Legends rarely ask permission," she said. "But this one, I think, is kind." They stood together as the sculpture shimmered. Around them, the air whispered the old prophecy one last time, when thought forgets heart, and light fears its shadow. The bound flame shall come, not as a savior, but as a reminder. Marcus looked at Seraphine. "A reminder of what?" She smiled. "That even the smallest spark can light a world." They stood in silence for a while, watching the light grow brighter. Outside, the first dawn of a new age rose over Zyril. Epilogue the legend spread years later. Stories of the bound flames spread beyond. Zyril. Other worlds whispered of the human who spoke gently and changed empires without firing a weapon. The Ascendancy began to study emotion, to seek balance not through control but through empathy, and in the heart of the palace. The light that once bound a human and a princess still pulsed. Quiet and warm a memory that the universe carried forward. For fate had not made a mistake. It had simply chosen the only kind of hero the galaxy had forgotten it needed, A human who reminded everyone that being brave, being kind, and being imperfect were not weaknesses. They were the very things that kept the stars shining.